our beloved Sundance Film Festival, after 40 years in Utah, is relocating to Boulder, Colorado, starting in 2027. This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett Batty and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions. Garrett, my friend, my business partner in crime, what's up, man? How are you?
So we are. I like that. I like that.
I think so.
Something
I
in
think
crime.
we're conspiring. We're conspiring.
Co-conspirator.
We're co-conspirators. There we go.
I'm good. Darren, thanks for having me, and thanks for partnering with me on this. This is fun.
Yeah, I should clarify, we're not business partners, but we have done business together, and we have partnered on things, and we are co-conspirators in making a truly independent film ecosystem for everybody to participate in. Hi, everyone.
This may be our smoothest intro yet. This is awesome.
So smooth. Hey,
no,
Garrett.
No, it's great. I love your energy. Thanks very much for bringing it each week. Good to see you, man.
You too. Hey, did you hear the news?
What have you heard? To quote Ryan Reynolds, why? What have you heard?
What have you
is that too soon?
Sundance, our beloved Sundance Film Festival, after 40 years in Utah, is relocating to Boulder, Colorado, starting in 2027. So the 2026 festival will be the very last in the state of Utah. Did you hear the news?
Not only did I hear it, but that news landed and broke my internet feed, which was great. Which obviously, we record here in Utah. I've been Utah based for 20 years, relocated from Southern California, and yes, so Sundance is a major part of the film industry here. We love it, and yes, that news broke that Sundance is leaving Utah, and it everybody seemed to have their own take on it, like why and what it's going to do, and doom and gloom, and oh no, and why couldn't we keep it here, and things like that.
Yeah,
but I have my own opinions on it. What are your thoughts?
I want to hear your opinions, but it was funny because people in LA were reaching out like I was in the middle of an earthquake or something, and they were like, "Are you safe? Are you okay? How are you feeling? You have water and toilet paper?" And I was like, "We're good, man. It's okay. Life moves on." So yeah, it happened, and 100% of it is out of my control, and so I tend to take the stance of, if it's out of my control, I don't give it a lot of thought, and I don't let it affect my emotional state. I have reasons that I'm sad that it is leaving, and reasons that I'm not necessarily glad, but that I'm indifferent that it's leaving. And so we can talk about all the things, but yeah, I definitely feel like we are in a unique position to talk about it because you and I have friends who have had projects in the festival. We've attended the festival. It's local to us. So let's start with you. I think you probably have paid more attention than I have. I kind of heard it, saw it, wrote about it, let it go.
Yeah, I think rightfully so. I think that's a great way to handle it. And yes, to add a voice to the already very overcrowded, opinion-filled, non-expert calamity. Here's my take on it. And I grew up living across the street from one of the screening venues in Park City at the Sundance Film Festival. So it is an integral part of my influence as a filmmaker, of going to Sundance, seeing all the fun, the big movie stars and all of the actors that come in to an independent, and I'm air quoting, film festival, and being a part of that. I loved being a part of it. I love even these past couple of years going up and supporting my own friends who have had films premiere there, and it's a great 10 days in January that we've watched grow from the very beginning, from 40 years ago. So yes, news broke that Sundance is leaving. They're headed out to Boulder, which I'm so excited for. Good for Boulder. In my opinion, it's been humorous to see the internet break as far as my news feed or whatever. I say internet, it's obviously a very small take on it, but I think it just needs to calm down, and it's okay. One of the things that I do want to address is like this myth busting that of why Sundance moved. Sundance has been talking about moving for a while. There is no there, in my opinion. This is all in my opinion. There's no one reason or one cause or one nail in the coffin as to why Sundance is moving. Uh, I will say that many are saying that it is about Utah politics, and that is just not it. That not only is that a stretch, it's just lazy. It's lazy to think that, and a little bit kind of a yeah, it's giving credit where credit isn't due, or it's giving blame where blame isn't due. Right? Utah has always been a conservative state, and that didn't stop Sundance from thriving here for decades, for 4 decades, right?
If
And we just
anything, I think Utah's gotten more progressive over the years and more purple over the years, because I remember moving here in, the early 2000s, and it was like 80% LDS, and now it's like less than 50, I think. So like, not that LDS equals conservative, but I personally feel like it's less conservative than the 80s, 90s, and aughts when I was visiting here and have family here. And I'm just like, man, I mean, I live in Provo, Utah, and feel very comfortable as a very centrist individual politically, and very staunchly independent politically. And so I don't buy it either. I think you're right. I think it's a lazy argument, and I don't even understand the need to try and pin it on one reason, because what does that do? Like, say you're right. It doesn't change anything.
well, you're not right, and I do want to clarify that you're not right. For years, we embraced Sundance both economically, culturally, and logistically. Like
Yeah.
Park City bent over backwards to make Sundance its home. Shutting down things, just rolling out the red carpet for Sundance, and it's thrived in Utah. Not only did we embrace it, but we built it. Right?
Yeah.
We built Sundance, and so don't be, if you're an independent filmmaker that's concerned that Utah politics are controlling what comes in and out of, that is not the case at all, and don't fall for that lazy argument.
But
Um,
I think the flip side of that argument is also not true, in that we didn't want Sundance here anymore. I heard one or two people say, well, Sundance got too woke and got too progressive, and the films no longer align with our values. I'm like, guys, it's never been about like Utah values and Hollywood values clashing at Sundance. That's never been the thing. And whether you believe or feel that Sundance has lost its way, we made a very aggressive bid to keep them here, both from the cities that were involved, like the infrastructure changes that they were going to try to make. Like, they put in a very strong bid. And so I think the reasons aren't around we wanted them to stay and they wanted to leave, or vice versa. It was different than that.
yeah,
It was other
much.
reasons.
Yeah, I think it's about practicality, right? It's not politics or
I think
it's
so.
about practicality, right? Park City, it's just an incredible place to have this, but it was very tight on infrastructure. Going up there the past couple of years, I paid the $50 a day to park close to Main Street, and that's a lot. That's significant.
Yeah. The
For
infrastructure hasn't
independent
changed
film
in 20
festival,
years.
right?
Like, I mean, it's still a 2-lane road with a center turn lane getting into town, which is just insane when you're inviting another 50 or 75,000 people to visit your little mining town. Like, they needed infrastructure changes, and I don't think that was ever going to change, because it historically hasn't. As long
Well,
as I've been aware of the festival, they haven't really made any upgrades except for the buses.
Well, and that's their option and prerogative, and I'm glad they haven't. Like that's what keeps Park City quaint and
Yeah.
fun, and I love that I can drive up there right now today, 20 years after living there, and park across the street from the Sundance Film Festival and look and see my family's name still etched on the mailbox in the house that I grew up in. We haven't lived there
Wow.
for years, and yet
Yeah.
there's this wonderful kind of down home mentality still.
Mhm.
I'm probably the only person that's ever described Park City right now as down home, but
Or quaint.
I love it. I love that it's still quaint. Yeah, still quaint. It's an incredible place. Boulder,
Yeah.
Colorado, similar mountain town vibe, just more space, more hotels, bigger venues. If Sundance is saying, "Hey, we're growing, we're going to take bids from Cincinnati, from Park City and Salt Lake, or from Boulder, or they had Santa Fe, they had Florida, they had all sorts of places." Um, they're going to choose one, and that's great. So that
And of
it's not
all
a
the
slight,
places,
it's not a slight on Park City or Utah.
yeah. But of all the places, they picked the best one. Let's just say that outright. Like Boulder's a cool city, has a lot more infrastructure, like you mentioned, and will have a very similar vibe. I think Sundance will feel about the same, very similar, somewhere in that realm, as far as like instead of Cincinnati, which would feel very different, Florida would feel very different. It would change the entire ethos and vibe, as the kids say these days, of the festival. So I'm glad that it was Boulder, given all
Yeah,
the options.
I think it's gonna be great. I think that we as an independent, we as a Utah independent film market, it doesn't have to feel badly about Sundance going. Doesn't have to be upset. I think it's a great kind of a mutual breakup. Sundance, thank you for being here. Thanks for building the Utah community. Best of luck in Boulder. I can't wait to go out there and see some films. And for us here in Utah, great opportunity to fill this gap of a festival, or really nurture the independent film market here in Utah. There are some wonderful festivals. I'll shout out to Zion's, that occur very similar time period to Sundance, and we would welcome growth in those areas.
Yeah. I'll also say you mentioned the opportunity that now exists. Within a day or two, Governor Cox and for those who aren't familiar, Ryan Smith is kind of a well-known name here in Utah. He sold a company years ago for buku bucks and now like owns sports teams. He owns the Jazz. He owns the center that is they play in. He started and brought in the Utah Hockey Club. Like he's just very invested in Utah. And he and Spencer Cox both came out saying, we're going to build something new. We're going to build something that's unique and something that's true to our, whether or not it's values, but true to our heritage here in Utah. We're the most entrepreneurial state around, is the way they kind of framed it. It's like, we can do this. We can create something new. We already have the infrastructure. We have the volunteers. We have the history. Creating a new festival to fill that void isn't actually going to be that difficult if it just means putting a little bit of money in and getting the support of the government and the people backing it. So I'm
Yeah,
excited for what happens there. And I'm knocking on the door saying, can I come in and be a part of this room, please? Because they need the indie filmmakers in the room, not just the legislatures or the money peoples. They need the filmmakers in there too. So I'm excited
yeah,
to see what comes of that.
good. I'm I do have a little bit of skepticism on that, because a film festival, we know it isn't just invented, isn't just legislated into existence. Like there
Yeah.
has to be this passion behind it. It's got to be driven, and it can't just be reliant on government funding a venue every year. Um, so I love that there is desire from whatever that scene to create or be involved in supporting the film industry and the film festival. That's awesome. We have yet to see what that is going to be, and I don't think we need to wait for it. I think as an independent spirit, we create it. There are many wonderful festivals already that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years, and I think that there's a great opportunity to fill that window in January up in Park City.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a good thing for independent filmmakers. If there's another festival, especially one that's going to need indies in order to get its, feet under itself, they probably won't be attracting the big studio releases that want to premiere at a massive festival the first, second, third year. So it's going to require indie filmmakers creating good, unique stories that can only be told in a way that the festival resonates with, to say, okay, what's our programming look like year one, year two?
Yeah.
That's an opportunity. That's something that we can capitalize on and take advantage of and really use to get more awareness for indie film and more opportunities for indie filmmakers.
I agree. It's a good
Breathe
news
it
all
in.
around. I think it's news all around. How we react is up to us,
Yeah.
but don't fall prey to just repeating talking points that don't have any validity to them.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. All right, man. Well, let's put a pin in that one and move on to our next segment. We got a couple of different topics that we wanted to go over today because there's a lot happening, and so we wanted to kind of touch on it. We're not necessarily a breaking news podcast, but it
Yeah, yeah,
seemed
yeah.
very appropriate. We are uniquely situated to be sitting here in Utah when this news broke. So, next up for our episode today, let's talk about, you're really, like we mentioned in a previous episode, 1 or 2 episodes ago, you're really in the thick of the post-theatrical distribution. You're looking at digital release, you're looking at physical like DVDs and Blu-rays, you're looking at streaming options. Like there's so many things for Faith of Angels specifically. So do you want to give us kind of an update and like how are things going with, you mentioned BitMax on a previous episode, you mentioned DVDs, you've been sending me like links, like, does this work? Can you see it? Can you check this out? So like you're in the thick of it. Give us a bit of an update. And if there's anything you want to share that you think would be helpful to those that are maybe going to do the same process in the next couple of months or years.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. We are definitely in the thick of it and kind of embracing that true independent spirit of getting this movie out into audiences wherever they can, watch the film. This we're obviously talk about Faith of Angels. We talk a lot about that film because that's the one that you and I produced together. So we are this week. I've been working on the DVD, just making sure that that gets authored and out there. And there's a conversation to be had about physical media making a comeback, or at least still being very relevant, especially in an independent film landscape. Which so for your, I don't think I told you this. I created the cover art, just designed the cover art, and have somebody from Fiverr that's authoring the DVD and Blu-ray. So, and then we've got a lab that'll replicate. And in that process, I, opened up a seller account on Amazon, and we'll upload, the artwork and start selling those products there. So I've been doing a lot of research on that. Right after I uploaded the DVD or the artwork, and kind of set up the thing for sale, um, sure enough, I get 2 emails like DVD purchase, like you've sold DVDs. And I was thinking, wait a second, this isn't how it happens. They're not just like, we're not promoting, we're not advertising. Nobody's sitting waiting on their computer, for Faith of Angels to go on sale on DVD. So I started
Except
looking at,
maybe they are.
right? Maybe they are. Who knows? All I know is that I haven't replicated yet, and so I got to figure out really quickly how to get a couple of copies of these DVDs sent out. I'll, if you're the one that ordered the DVD, it's coming. I'll send an email that said, "Hey, just stand by, wait for replication." But
Well, you just said it on our podcast and millions of people listen. So you better get ready because
but
this hits in 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks, Garrett, to
I
get a
got 2 weeks.
million copies ready to go.
I have on my whiteboard in my office just May 6th, Tuesday is the DVD release date, but I think we're going to sneak it out there before that, just to
Nice.
accommodate some of these requests. But it's fascinating to look at independent films on Amazon and see there's a count of, like, hey, sells 50 a month or sells 500 a month. And
Yep.
I love that count. I mean, who knows how accurate that is or how consistent that is. I don't have any data or research to track that. I'm sure there is, those numbers are out there. But it's exciting as an independent filmmaker to say, if I can place a DVD for $22 and replicate it at $1.25 a unit, that's another revenue stream that can help offset the cost of making a movie.
Yeah. This has been top of mind. I've been even doing some research over the last few weeks about what's the actual like net revenue to filmmakers from the different types of VOD. For example, you have transactional VOD, subscription based VOD, advertising based, you have fast channels, you have DVD, you have all these different options, right? And it's this weird disparity between, like, there are some channels that you can release your film on where you make dollars every time someone purchases it or rents it. And there are other platforms on the other end of the spectrum that will give you somewhere between 6 and 20 cents when someone watches your film. And just like, this could be an entire episode of me just ranting about
Yeah,
streaming,
yeah,
but I'm not going to do that. But just from a very high level, if you can make $3 over here and you make 12 cents over here, I mean, you can do the math and you can just realize that, okay, maybe I should put more thought and effort and time and focus and energy into the things that pay multiple dollars every time someone buys it or rents it, compared
yeah,
to over here where it's completely devalued to the point of being essentially free and you're making 10, 12 cents a stream from a platform. It just, to me, doesn't align with the way that I see being truly independent. And
So
so, yeah,
what
I'll
is
stop.
that, Darren? Why do we do that? Well, no, I want to dig deeper a little bit in that. As a filmmaker, there's that desire, there's that ego, right? Of like, oh, my movie is available to a billion people worldwide because of X, you know, Netflix has so many subscribers and now they can watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so why sign with, certain streamer that might not pay out?
I certainly can see why, if you're not, if you don't have any participation in the upside, you want it to get as much distribution as possible. Because if you're an actor, writer, director,
Mm.
cinematographer, whatever it is, if it's on Netflix, then that benefits you in your career because you can say, oh, yeah, my last movie is on Netflix. So I totally get that. And I would say 90% of filmmakers are in the right by saying, yeah, I want as much distribution as possible. But from us sitting here as like almost fiduciaries, right, of the people who are the stewards of the investors' money, we have to be thinking about profitability. We have to be thinking about
Yeah.
return on investment. And as soon as a movie goes on a streaming platform that's available all the time, anywhere for essentially free or $20 a month, how are you going to then tell those same audience members, oh, by the way, you can also buy it on iTunes for $20 or
Yeah.
buy it directly from us for $20, right? How do you do that? I don't think you go back, which is why historically we've had different windows for these different types of releases, because essentially it gets progressively less valuable the further along in the windows you go. So you save your least profitable windows for the end. And we talked about this when we were talking about streaming on Angel Studios and how maybe that platform's a little different. And we're excited to see how that plays out. But I think as producers specifically, not necessarily as filmmakers as a whole, but as producers who are trying to get a return on an investment for the investors that put money into your movie, I think you have to really be considering where's the best place to do it. And if you've recouped your money and your investor made a return and you're in profit, well, yeah, by all means, go and get as much distribution as possible. But until that moment happens, I think going and putting it on a platform where you're making sense every time someone streams it, in lieu of the hard work of self-distributing, putting it on Amazon, selling it direct from your own website, doing physical DVDs, doing it on all these other platforms where you make more per purchase or per rental. I think that's the wrong way to think about it. So I think it just is on us as producers to really think about the financial profitability of the project and how are we serving that in the early stages of distribution to make sure that we can recoup, make some money so that we can then go make another movie.
Yeah. I think you've talked a lot about the principles of oversubscribing or becoming oversubscribed or whatever, and I think that there's value. I'm curious if something like that applies to what we're doing here, where if there is an awareness already of your title and a demand for it, great. You can like put it out there on Netflix. That's fantastic because that feeds. I think the demand feeds the growth and the awareness, or awareness feeds demand, or whatever it is. But where we have maybe these niche titles or a truly independent film, where we are creating the conversation behind it and really directing the audience on where they should go find it, to be able to put it out there for essentially free. um, yeah, I don't know. There's no ego in independent film distribution. There's, you can't get excited. You can't if you're sitting with an investor for your next movie, and you say, "Well, my last three movies went straight to Netflix." They don't care about that. Say, "What did your last three movies bring in?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I sold 3,000 DVDs on Amazon in the first month. Okay, now that's a conversation.
Yeah. From my own email list for free without any advertising spent, right?
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. And I think you could also look at the idea of windowing in terms of being the ability to be oversubscribed. You
Uh-huh.
could be oversubscribed in theaters because there's a limited number of showtimes and limited number of seats and a limited amount of time that it's in theaters. So you have that built in capacity or supply that demand could then outsize, right? And you could be oversubscribed. If you're selling out shows, you're oversubscribed. We were oversubscribed for our premieres of both of our movies. They were sold out. There were too many tickets, or too much demand for tickets and only so many seats. And so that
And
was a
that
really good thing. And it
and it
led to
fueled
really,
demand. It continued
exactly.
to fuel demand.
People could see that it was a sold out premiere and go, oh, this must be a good movie because lots of people want to see it. And that drives words of mouth and all the other things. How do you have a scenario where demand outpaces supply when it's a digitally available on streaming scenario? Like,
Yeah.
it's impossible. You cannot be oversubscribed on Netflix because it's infinite supply, infinite time, infinite everything. Like, so you can't. So that's why it should go kind of at the end of the strategy. And you put the things where you can be oversubscribed, or you can manufacture a situation where you could be oversubscribed. Like, look at DVDs. What if you created 100 limited edition signed by you and Michael copies of the Blu-ray, and you charge twice as much for those? Well, you could be oversubscribed because there's a limited amount, and the people that want those will pay for them. And as soon
My
as they're
mom,
out, they're
my
out.
mom,
Right.
she'll want that.
But I guarantee the Dennis family is going to buy some of those, right? We would probably ship them to them and say,
We
thank
give
you
it,
for being
yeah,
a
we
part of
give
this,
it,
right?
we give it to them.
But you know what I mean? There are people who are massive Garrett Batty fans who say, yeah, I want the combination platter of the Blu-ray, the DVD, the signed screenplay, and the poster for $100. Okay, well, maybe you sell 10 of those. Well, great. That's $1,000. How many
Uh,
streams do you need to do at a 3 cents per stream to make $1,000? That's what we're
yeah,
talking about.
yeah, and I'll put a little bit of an asterisk on this, because this is not designed to be a conversation against Netflix, but as a business, or a model. Because I have friends that have very lucrative careers making films for Netflix, but those are pre-buy. Those are like first look put deals where Netflix is writing the check for the film. And if that's the case, 100% do that. That's great,
Yeah,
because you are not beholden to an investor to recoup,
exactly.
and that's
Two
very
different things we're talking
prescriptive.
about.
I mean, for me, yeah, I can't sign a deal with somebody that says we hope it'll make your money back. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Um,
Right.
Good. Okay. Good conversation. It leads us a little bit into the BitMax conversation. Maybe that's what you're going for,
Yeah.
um, because in addition to the DVD and Blu-ray for Faith of Angels, which again May 6th coming out, get your orders ready. Uh, uh, the BitMax scenario is for streaming solutions, and I did a lot of research on different streaming platforms, different aggregators, or I guess distributors that want to have exclusive streaming rights, and just talking with a couple of different other filmmakers, and from past experience, BitMax seemed like a great solution. So just this morning, we signed the agreement with BitMax to
Nice.
so we will upload Faith of Angels on to their platform, and they put it out there on the platforms, the four big ones that we suggest or that we approve, and then they'll go to more if we approve those. But we pay a fee up front, and then we get 100% of whatever comes back from those platforms. So it's the decision that we made based on what we think our audience is going to do for this film. We think it'll be a good decision.
Well, and to me, that's the most compelling part of that whole scenario, which is it's an upfront fee. I think you pay upfront to like upload the thing, and then for each platform, you have to pay like a little bit extra, right?
Yeah,
But even then, if you're all in a couple $1,000s, and they're not taking 20 or 30% or whatever on top of the platform's 30%, like iTunes or Amazon takes, then you're maximizing the amount of money you get back into your pocket to pay your investors and make a profit to make the next movie, which
yeah,
again is the goal. Like, if we're truly independent, it means that we are regenerating the funds from the first movie to make the next one and the next one and the next one. So I love that idea, and I can't wait to see how it plays out, especially how it does compared to Angels, compared to DVD, compared to the other things that we're doing. So it'll be really great data, and I'm excited to share it with the audience to say, look, here's what we learned, here's what we did, and already I think you've by saving the, let's call it 20% that you would give away to an aggregator, which is an intermediary between you and BitMax, essentially,
Yeah.
to say, please put our movie on these streaming platforms. They said, great, we'll take 20% off the top every time you sell something there or stream it there. Like, you already increased your profitability by doing it yourself. And how hard was it?
We're in the process, but yeah, it's going to be an upload. It's what I've already been doing for everything else, as far as uploading to the DVD place, uploading to Great American PureFlix. It's just another. It's more data that I have to pay for. But it
Yeah.
yes, Darren, I think there's a solution. One of the things that occurred to me too as we're doing this is I think that we're in a place where audiences have their habits, right? The viewers have their individual habits. If I'm going to want to watch a movie, there are places that I will go look for that first, kind of a sequence of events. Hey, is this movie available on Netflix? Like, how much do I have to pay for this movie to watch it? Our family watched The Wild Robot this weekend. We ended up
Mm-hmm.
paying $20 to own it on off of Apple TV,
Yeah.
right? And so that's kind of a habit that we're going to view, and it might be available right now on Peacock or Hulu or Netflix or excuse me, other streaming. Um, and okay, do we want to sign up and subscribe to that? Uh, and that might be some people's habits to do the sign up and subscribe. I thought it was great that we can make Faith of Angels available to whatever habit, uh, viewing habit people have.
Yeah.
So I imagine that even though it might be available on DVD on Amazon for $20, some generations don't care for DVDs right now, but they'll
Yeah.
pay $20 to rent it on iTunes or Apple TV, I guess I should say. So
Yeah. 100%. I love it. And I'm really excited to keep getting updates on this. So it sounds like in 4 weeks, we'll have a update of it's available. And then a couple weeks after that, we can look at how it went and how it's doing. And it's really exciting.
yeah, we
We
just
did
finished
have,
Q1. We're
yeah,
recording this at the very end of Q1, so
yeah,
we'll start to be able to report on how it did with its two streaming plates, is Angel Studios and Living Scriptures, here in a couple of
yeah,
weeks as well.
very cool. Well, we did get a listener question that we should address today as well. So thank you to Paul for listening, and for sending in a question. So I just want to read part of this. That's okay. From what I picked up on in a previous show, it seems that P&A, which is prints and advertising lenders, get first out, but at a lower interest return and with no equity in a project. Is it possible to give equity investors an option for first out written into the agreement? My thought is it might be attractive for some investors as an added security blanket of sorts. For example, if they decided they'd like to get paid out sooner, they'd have the option to get basically the same terms as a P&A lender / investor. Can something like this be done? So, Garrett, give us your experience on this question.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Paul. Um, yes, I mean, you as an independent film, the great news about independent filmmaking is you get to write the rules, right?
Yeah,
Even within certain limits of the fundraising aspect. You obviously have to comply with local laws and and business, law. But sure, you can definitely write that in your contract. I've had experiences. I've had projects where my negative cost investors or my first kind of equity investors have participated as P&A investors. It's a separate loan, so they participate in that. As far as writing them for an option for first out, I mean, I could see that if that's something. If you're saying, "Oh, this is a $2 million movie, I've got one main investor that's more than 50% of that, and he wants to have a priority," or then you'd have to write that. I think it's most important that all of your investors are in agreement and that you have transparency between all investors. Because I think what you want to avoid is having people have separate deals and then having them trying to keep information from each other, and that's just not um, never a recipe for a good experience.
yeah, don't do that. I love what you said, though. It's like you can do whatever you want. And whether or not it works is really up to the investors that you're talking to. You can present them with the option and they can say yes or no, just the same way they can the other version. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that doing that there's a cause and effect that happens, right? If you give that priority to the early equity investors, you might be making it less enticing for the people coming in later, because there are investors who exclusively want to do the last money in, first money out. And if you've tweaked the language around that, or tweaked the waterfall, so to speak, to where it's not a typical last money in, first money out scenario, they might go, well, I can go get a better return with this other project for the same amount of money, because they didn't do that to the agreement or to the investment. So just keep in mind that, if you put some weight on the scale on one side to make it more enticing for an early investor, you might be making it less enticing for your later term investors. And that's just something to be aware of.
As well, that's a great point. You want to make sure that again, that it's balanced and equal. Um, it's so that you don't create awkward conversations for yourself later when you say, "Oh, so and so is getting 25% plus an early buyout. Would you like to participate?" And suddenly no, just go back to your preferred investor. Um, I will there a way around this, or a way to another way to couch this would be an opportunity for that equity investor to buy out early. And I've had that happen on various projects where an investor says, wherever their interests are elsewhere, they want to leave the project or buy out their investment, and so they can do that too. And then that share comes back to the filmmakers and not the investor pool.
Yeah. For as many movies as there's probably that many versions of a
Right.
waterfall or financing plan or a way of structuring the investment. And so there's really no right, or there's probably wrong ways, but like, do it the way that makes sense for you and your investors. Right. And I will just kind of remind people, or kind of echo back to this idea of being oversubscribed. A lot of times we as filmmakers, what I see at least, is we think that if we can just figure out the right structure, then it'll happen. Then all the investors will come rushing in. And I haven't experienced that or seen that happen. It's not really a matter of how you're structured. It's more a matter of, are you oversubscribed? Do you have more demand to invest in your project than you have supply? If your supply is $1 million is available, and you have more than $1 million of interest, you're oversubscribed. And so I would put more time and effort and attention into getting oversubscribed with the investment in your project, rather than who's got the right, perfect, exact, tweaked waterfall in order for me to get the investment. Because I've never had someone go, well, your waterfall doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to invest. It's always, if they want to invest, they'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And if there's limited supply and they can see that there's a lot of demand, well, then you can kind of set the terms yourself. You can say, well, this is what makes the most sense for me and this movie and the investors, so that everybody wins and we get this outcome of a great movie and a financial return and. So I would focus more time and effort there than on, what structure, what waterfall, what app, all those things.
I have a lunch scheduled tomorrow, Darren, with somebody that reached out and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this concept of expensive money." Um, they've heard me mention that before on the
Hmm.
podcast or with different conversations, and I think it applies to this question as well. Make sure that you're not tweaking the waterfall, or tweaking or making so many unique situations for certain investors to come in, that money, their money, becomes expensive or controlling, or it jeopardizes really your ability to function and make decisions, um, both creative and business decisions. And I keep it very clear in my investor agreements that the company, meaning the filmmaker, or those that own the company, you and me as business partners, we reserve the right to make decisions in the best creative and financial interests for the film. And I think once you limit yourselves as that, or give those rights away, it becomes very, very difficult as an independent filmmaker to deliver what you're committing to deliver.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I'll be excited to hear how that conversation goes tomorrow. That sounds like a fun one.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's somebody that's been raising money for a long time, and um, they're kind of in that point where they're making different accommodations. They're like, oh, well, here's some product placement opportunities and things like that. And I think the light bulb went off in them saying, this suddenly didn't become about making the movie I want to make. And so how do I get back down to like saying, no, this is the investment. And if you're interested, great. If not, no problem. There's lottery tickets you can go buy.
Yeah.
Awesome. We do not endorse the lottery.
Awesome. It's just the fine print in our episode.
Right. I could just hear legal saying, yeah, just kidding. We don't have legal.
We don't have legal. We have ChatGPT is what I have. Amazing, Garrett. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, so I think it's a good place to kind of wrap up. But ultimately, I just hope that what we're talking about here empowers people rather than scares them away. Yes, it's hard. Yes, there's a lot of work involved, but my goodness, is it fulfilling and is it rewarding and is it worth it? Yeah, 100%, or else we wouldn't be doing this 20 years in. So hopefully that's the big takeaway for people is like, we kind of get into the nitty gritty at times and it can get a little confusing or a little arduous or daunting, but zoom out and you go, my goodness, we get to tell stories for a living that have the ability to change people for the better, to have an influence on the world around us through the stuff that we make. Like that's pretty amazing and incredible. And so I'm going to keep doing that for as long as I can. I'm going to keep championing indie film because I think it's the best way to tell those kinds of stories. And I'm going to keep, having these awesome conversations with filmmakers like you who get it and who are on the same path and trying to do the same thing.
Great way to end. Awesome. I agree. Let's do it again next week.
Sounds good, man. We'll
Thanks
see you then.
Listening. Thanks for your questions. Be sure and share this podcast. That's how we continue to be able to make it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey, be notified and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to share this. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.